Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet home Chicago. 2 is 4, 4 4 6. Come on, baby, now get your business fixed. Come on.
Hi there, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hersh, and your host, Avi Meyers.
Thank you, Marty. Welcome, everyone, to the Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hersh and myself. Dial us up on the web at ntnm.org. Community policing, we're real big on it. At least I think we are. Sonny, of course, chairman of the District Advisory Committee and the elected by a strong margin. Anytime you get 60% or more, it's pretty much considered a landslide in politics. So he's the chairman of 2413. His meetings are every third Tuesday, alternating between Greenbrier and Emerson Park. Go to the web, caps24.org, which was created and run by Sonny. I also want to say that there's a lot of useful services there. There's a graffiti report form on it that goes straight to the 24th District. I just figured I'd try it out because I finally had graffiti across the alley from me on the fence and on the building directly across the alley. I filled out that form on Thursday night, and the following Monday, there was somebody there taking all the graffiti off. Of course, you could also call 311, or you could call the office.
Alderman's office.
Right, that's where I was getting. And I want to thank Chuck Shea for getting him here. And, of course, the alderman of the 50th Ward, my favorite alderman, your favorite alderman, Alderman Berny Stone. How are you?
Good, thank you. You didn't mention your haircut today.
Oh, and yes, Marty, I did take a haircut Friday. I got squeezed between two doctors, Herschel Weller and Jerry Noble, who I both know from, actually, Herschel's brother, Joel, and I went to Akiba Jewish Day School in the Ida Crown Academy together. And Jerry Noble's dad, of course, is Rabbi Noble, very nice guy. And I actually, the last time I had seen him was 5 years ago when I was actually at on the wrong end of the bed at Swedish Covenant. Very nice guy.
You weren't visiting.
I wasn't visiting, no. But I did quit smoking then, which was a good thing. But anyway, you know what? There's all kinds of pending legislation right now in City Council. It's an exciting time.
There are plenty of things pending, and we have pending, locally we have pending requests for a public amusement for the banquet hall on Devon and Maplewood, which there's a little controversy over, and we're going to wait and see what happens on that. I haven't made up my mind as yet because I haven't heard both sides as yet.
So whose banquet hall is that?
I forget the name of the gentleman who owns it.
Is it one that belongs to one of the restaurants there? Is that where they had meetings in the past?
Yes. And as soon as I hear both sides, then we'll make up our mind. After he appears before the zoning committee, then if he's successful there, he has to go for a variance. But I'm not so sure whether or not he's going to be successful. There's quite a bit of people opposing, and he's getting a petition of people who are in favor, and there are people who are opposing. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and then we'll make a decision.
Yeah, I'd ask you more, but if you don't know yourself, it's not.
I don't know myself. No, at this point, it's a little early in the game. That'll be decided probably right about the time that this goes on the air.
He's looking to expand, or?
No, basically it's just a question of the type of entertainment that'll be put on at the banquet hall.
Interesting. Okay.
And
we getting a strip club?
No, I don't think so. But it's right next to the mosque, and that's part of the problem.
Oh, religious place and all the rest of it. So that would put limitations.
Yes.
Is that also a school zone over there? Or?
No, but as I understand it, some of the people in the mosque are opposing it. So we'll wait and see.
Okay, very good. And there's got to be more, you said.
Oh, well, that's a local matter, but something that isn't local is, of course, there's been 2 ordinances introduced concerning expanding the powers of the Inspector General so that the Inspector General would expand his powers over the City Council and the members of their staff. Now, I, for one, am one of those who is in opposition, and all the good government people say that I'm wrong. But let me give you some of the reasons why I think they're wrong.
Okay.
First of all, the reason it was put in the first place stems from something that occurred maybe 40 or 50 years ago, which occurred on the national level in Congress, and when there was a fellow by the name of J. Edgar Hoover.
I've heard of him.
The head of the FBI. And, of course, J. Edgar Hoover was a member of the executive branch of government, and he had the power to investigate Congress. He had all of the powers which they want to give to the Inspector General, who's also a member of the executive branch of government, and they want to give him the power to investigate the legislative branch of government. J. Edgar Hoover used those powers to blackmail members of Congress, and either for his own private purposes, which sometimes were really very, very evil.
Yeah, Jackie Anderson. He's read quite a bit of the stuff that Jackie Anderson had to write about him.
And for the administration, depending on which administration was in power at which time, to get their votes on certain legislation.
Yeah, he was even taping Martin Luther King's private hotel and motel room.
Oh, yes. So that is the reason that when we passed the original ethics ordinance, which was in the 1980s, we put in a provision that did not allow the Inspector General to investigate the legislative branch of government, which would in fact give them power to influence votes in the City Council, nor members of their staffs, which would give them the same type of powers. In other words, the power to influence on behalf of the chief executive. Now, needless to say, the only one the Inspector General reports to is to the mayor, period. The only time the City Council even gets to speak to the Inspector General is at budget time, and quite frankly, he will either answer us by saying that matter is under investigation, or quite frankly, just plain lies to us.
A person in government lying?
Oh my God, that never happens. Now let's examine what has occurred over the last 2 terms of the City Council. Over the last 2 terms of the City Council, there's been a number of scandals. Do you know that only 1 alderman in those last 2 terms has been the subject of any of those scandals? That 1 alderman was Arenda Troutman. And quite frankly, I'm not the least bit surprised, nor do I really care the fact that she was indicted and convicted and is in jail because she was an out-and-out crook. So that doesn't bother me in the least.
Okay, yeah, crooks are
And
put
you
away.
know what?
Yeah.
The City Council is constantly under the observation of the FBI, the state's attorney, any other investigative body. So it's not like the City Council isn't under observation of investigative bodies.
Yeah, what is it? Something like close to 40? A number of your colleagues, you have...
Well, that's over the many years ago.
Right. Okay.
So during the last 8 years, all these scandals that have occurred, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
were in the executive branch of government, not in the legislative branch of government. So now you want to give the power to the Inspector General to investigate the legislative branch. Now, did the Inspector General, is he the one who uncovered all these scandals in the executive branch? Absolutely not. It was the FBI that found all these scandals in the executive branch. So is that why we want to give the power to the Inspector General, so he can uncover scandals? Why? What the hell did he do in the past? I mean, if he doesn't do anything, oh, wait a minute. Yes, he did uncover a terrible scandal. And guess what? It was in the 50th Ward. He supposedly uncovered a scandal that involved the ward superintendent in the 50th Ward, which hasn't gone to trial as yet.
Yeah, it's quite a while, as a matter of fact. It's over
It's 15 months and still hasn't gone to trial. And they uncovered his two inspectors filed the complaints in that case, which had nothing to do with what he is empowered to inspect. It has to do with what is called voter fraud, which he is not empowered to inspect.
Yeah. I didn't know that. It's interesting.
And it was a member of the executive body. The ward superintendent is a member of the executive branch of government because he works for the Department of Streets and Sanitation. But it was revealed a week before an election, and all the headlines said, Berny Stone's ward superintendent, when Berny Stone was running for election a week later.
That's exactly,
It didn't say his name, it said Berny Stone. In fact, two of the media said Berny Stone was indicted.
Ooh.
A week before the election. So you can't tell me that this is not used for political purposes. It's used strictly for political purposes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And as yet, the ward superintendent has still not gone to trial. Two of his inspectors signed a complaint against the ward superintendent, who incidentally, I'll bet anyone that he will be found not guilty.
Yeah.
The other individual who was indicted, we already know that the party who signed the complaint, who is the complaining witness against him, lied under oath.
Ooh.
And that will come out during the trial.
That's serious.
Of course it's serious. It's called perjury.
Yeah.
We know that to be a fact. And that's one of the reasons the case hasn't been tried as yet. And this whole thing is a pile of garbage. It's all trash. And when and if it ever comes to trial, it'll be thrown out. In addition to which, in my book, the ballot box is secret. And yet, what did the Inspector General do? He only opened ballots which were cast for guess who?
Okay.
Berny Stone. Now, how did he know that those ballots were cast for me? He couldn't have known it without breaking the seal of the ballot box.
Oh, that's not right.
It's not right. The ballot box is supposed to be a secret.
Yeah.
A secret vote. How did he know which ballots were cast only for me? And that's the only ballots they examined. I asked him this question at the budget hearings. He refused to answer.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, is there a limit how long he can sit being under, indictment without being tried?
And all of the continuances were by agreement, so.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And strategically, from a defendant standpoint, a defendant, it's to their benefit to let it be continued.
Yeah.
Because the longer the case waits for trial, the better it is for a defendant. The state's attorney asked for the. In fact, you have a new state's attorney since the case started.
Right. Yeah, she's been a guest on the show a couple times.
Yeah, Anita's okay.
And she's even done the Marty Levinson bit, just like you have.
Yeah, well, she's okay, too.
I like her.
I like her, too.
We're talking about Anita Alvarez, the state's attorney, of course.
Well, Dick Devine, who's my close friend, in fact, Dick Devine helped write my position papers when I ran the first time.
Very nice.
In 1973.
Wow.
In fact, Dick was then a resident of the 50th Ward. He's still a resident of the 50th Ward, but in between he left the ward. We wrote it in Dick Devine. We wrote my position papers in Dick Devine's basement, and at that time, I believe he lived on either Farwell or Morse. Now he lives on Pratt.
Yeah, just a little bit down, not that far from here, very close.
Right.
When he comes here, he walks.
Yeah. But in any event, this is just garbage, absolute garbage, and it was politically motivated. The complaints were signed by 2 inspectors in the Inspector General's office. It was filed a week before the election for committeemen.
Yeah.
And as I said, the people indicted, their names weren't even mentioned. The only name mentioned was my name.
Yeah, that just doesn't sound right to me. Somehow
It isn't right.
Yeah.
And then the election for a committeeman occurs a week later.
Yeah. As long as we're doing so well in the pending legislation category, we got any other pending legislation that's...
Oh, we got a lot of pending legislation.
Oh, and by the way, we want to say hi to Joe Chuck Shea, who was here now. We said hi to him before, but he didn't get to hear it.
Yeah.
So, hi, Joe. He always brings the alderman. And I hope you and your wife are doing well.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Joe lost his aunt today.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and...
should hear good news.
No, yeah, it should be better news the next time. But in any event, we do have other pending legislation. Today I read in the newspapers that the deal for Midway may be off, and that's unfortunate. And you'll recall the last time I was on the program, I told you what a good deal it was, because when we sold the lease for Midway, we got the highest possible price.
Yeah, it was big money.
You darn right it was. It was a couple $2 billion. If the deal is off, even though we get the deposit, which was I think $125 million, which is not pocket change.
No, I'd like a finder's fee, please.
But the full deal would be off. And remember, you know what we paid for Midway, don't you?
$1?
About that.
Okay.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just, taking a flyer.
It was in the early 1980s when Jane Byrne was mayor. We bailed out the Board of Education.
Board of Education owned it?
Board of Education owned it. It was El Busto. They had no money to bond. They couldn't get anybody to buy their bonds, and the city council bailed out the Board of Education, saved the Chicago public schools, and as a result, we ended up owning Midway.
Wow.
Airport. Because prior to that time, even though many years ago it was known as Chicago Municipal Airport,
yeah,
we did not own it. But we got Midway as part of the transaction.
That sounds pretty good.
Well, at one time, all of the Loop was owned by the Chicago Public Schools. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
Well, that happens to be true. That's part of your education on Chicago history.
I had absolutely no idea. I do remember, as a matter of fact, I remember when I was a little kid going to pick up my cousin just got married, and my parents went to meet him at the gate, and at that time you walked down to the field, and they brought up like a rolling step thing to get off the plane.
Well, my first flight was my first flight was out of LaGuardia, but we flew into Midway, and then I flew back from Midway to LaGuardia.
Yeah, and people don't realize, I guess, at one time Midway was the largest airport in the world.
That was when it was Chicago International, Chicago Municipal Airport.
Yeah.
But in any event, all of the loop was when on the purchase of the Northwest Territory.
I've heard of that.
Section 16 was set aside for education, and it just so happens that all of the loop...
that was a $15 million purchase, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know, but all of the loop was in Section 16.
Now, that was all the way... The Northwest Territory, was that the one that was all the way from New Orleans all the way up here? The one that happened in the early 1800s?
No, that was Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Okay. Now I'm thinking of a different transaction, but yeah,
no, you're thinking of Louisiana Territory.
Oh, the Louisiana Purchase, yeah, you're right.
But this was the 4 states in the Midwest. The Midwest, Michigan was involved too.
Yeah.
Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That was the Northwest Territory.
Interesting. It's been a long time since I've been in school learning that stuff.
Well, it's been even longer for me.
Yeah, but usually if nobody's elected, I don't always pay attention.
But in any event, all of the loop was in what was called Section 16. Every section is a mile square.
Yeah.
And
that's a good chunk of property.
And 36 sections make up a township.
So 36 square miles in Chicago is actually something like 230 square miles right now.
Well, that's what you're talking about. But Section 16 was the Chicago Loop.
Wow.
And the Chicago Board of Education owned all of the Chicago Loop.
That's a nice chunk of property they have.
Well, unfortunately, they sold off or leased most of it. And unfortunately, most of the loop was leased for 99 years back in the year 1900 at 1900 prices.
So that's
at
but
least
that's
for
over
99 years.
Now that also would mean when it was under the Board of Education, that also means the city wasn't collecting a real estate tax.
Probably. No, you pay a tax on the leasehold though. The owner of the property paid a tax on the leasehold.
So even though it was owned by a nonprofit, when they ran it to a non...
No, when the land was owned by the nonprofit, but the buildings were owned by profit.
Oh, and the buildings were...
Land and building are separate.
Gotcha.
So most of the high-rises were built on Chicago school property. Buildings like the building the Majestic Theater was on, that was leased from the Chicago Board of Education.
Yeah.
And their lease expired in the year 2005 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the property after, or what the Board of Education did when their leases ran out. But their leases just ran out a couple years ago.
Well, I would hope. But the Board of Education still technically owns a lot of that stuff, or?
If they didn't sell them off beforehand.
Yeah, it's really good. You know, and it's funny because I do read the papers all the time, and I never heard anything about it.
Well, that's your background of Chicago history.
Yeah, I don't know anything about anything because they won't tell us. Speaking of, well, first let me ask you, more pending legislation you want to talk about, or?
Well, basically, there's. I'm trying to think of what other important legislation is pending at this time. Zoning is, our agendas at zoning have fallen in half, have been cut in half because of the economic situation has been cut in half. There's very little real estate transactions occurring, so our zoning changes are way down.
Yeah, there's no money, no credit, and people are really don't.
And the other one is, are you familiar with the stimulus package for the city?
Actually, no. I don't know what the exact details are.
All right. Well, there's approximately 80-some miles of street in the stimulus, and for every mile is a $1.6 million. And this is not just paving of a street. This is a complete reconstruction of streets. And it so happens that the 50th Ward is going to get some reconstruction.
Nice.
Lincoln Avenue from Jersey to Devon is going to be reconstructed.
Yeah, I have a nickname for it, Croatia during the war.
Well, or it could be named Iraq or Baghdad.
Yeah.
Well, you understand, we talked about it on your show before, that was a state responsibility, and the state hasn't met its responsibility for 3 years.
Yeah, you're lucky it's only 3.
And as a result, that's the reason that all those potholes are there. In addition to that, California, from Pratt to Devon, will also be reconstructed.
Nice. It's been a long time.
So we most of the other streets are really on the south side. We're 2 of the fortunate north side streets are going to be in the 50th ward for reconstruction.
No, that's good. This may not be stimulus money, but in terms of things like I know pretty much up to Devon and pretty much throughout the 50th ward now they got the blue cans, the new recycling bins.
Yeah, well, but we're not getting it for the full ward. And we're trying to work on getting it for the full ward. So
there's nothing scheduled right now? Like, no. I'm up on Pratt, so there's nothing scheduled at all right now?
As of this, we're working on it, but at this point, no. I'm also working on a plan to increase the Von Tiff. They added another block to it, which is the block on California between Devon and Arthur, so that I can negotiate the construction of a new library.
Oh, that would be great. As a matter of fact, Leslie Kuykendall will be our guest in the next week or two, and she's the children's librarian. Of course, we want to say hi to Rose Powers, who's always really helpful.
Little Rose has been my friend for many years.
She's terrific. And as long as we're mentioning people in the community, but when this airs, we'll have 20 new solar compactors on Devon that Amy from the Business Association.
Yeah, I've been talking to Amy about it, too. Amy...
And by the way, June 15th, which is the 71st birthday of Billy Williams, my favorite Cub of all time.
Number 26.
Right. That is the day of the Chamber's softball game.
Okay.
And that'll be like the Tournament of Heroes between the police and the fire department. And
fire department, I think they've won both years so far.
They've won every single year it's been played. And, of course... once again, I'm getting the same salary I got in the first year's, 0 to be the play-by-play announcer, but I will be there.
Well, I threw out the ball the first year, but I wasn't available the second year.
Yeah. Well, anyway, just want to let everybody know, and we're going to have Amy on a future show, too, to talk about that. We've got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah. Well, I told you our plans for the school is starting, has started, and... I don't know if you've gone by Pratt and Rockwell, but we're up.
Yeah, I have. It's really making
starting
progress.
The second floor. They'll be laying the floor for the second floor very shortly.
That's great. I'm looking forward to people being able to park, the businesses having enough places for their customers to park, and the neighbors not having to scurry around to park their cars.
Absolutely, and We really have very little by the way of zoning pending, as I've just indicated, because most of the zoning is really dried up, with the exception of one matter I discussed earlier, which is really not so much a zoning matter as I still have that Howard Street zoning pending, but the attorney's been sitting on his
which Howard
heels.
Street?
That was the Siblings Bar on Howard.
Oh, yeah. They want to build a second story over there.
Second story, yes.
Yeah, it's a new owner. The other guy was...
he wanted to enlarge to add a restaurant to it, too.
Yeah. Anyway, at this point, I want to thank very much my guest, Alderman Berny Stone of the 50th Ward.
Thank you.
If people want to contact the ward office or call for service or...
773-764-5050.
773-764-5050. Of course, street cleaning will have started by now. I didn't even ask you about the menu for this year, but then again, you're getting all this stuff from the federal government, too. Yeah. Any special products, things coming this summer?
Well, we're starting we just opened the asphalt plant, so we'll be filling all those potholes very shortly.
That sounds good, and I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hersh. Stay tuned. Jim Nally is going to be our guest next week, and... We've got an interesting crew the week after. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.